Welcome everyone to Dropkick Discussions presented by Sportskeeda. I'm your host Korey Gunz along with wrestling insider Tom Colohue, and this is our Royal Rumble preview show. Tom, this is one of my sentimental favorites. It's definitely a show I'm looking forward to. I always love Royal Rumble time and getting on the road to WrestleMania.
Royal Rumble's just one of those events, isn't it? You've got the event itself. We're going straight into WrestleMania. This is the hottest and best time to be a wrestling fan, but you've also got the actual Royal Rumble matches. They are probably the most popular matches of any kind of wrestling. You always get so many storylines, so many cool moments, so many interesting things and things birthed from it. I'm very excited for this year.
I am too, and like I said, the Rumble is always kind of a sentimental favorite to me. My birthday's in January, so going back, the Royal Rumble was always my birthday present. You know, when I was a kid, my parents would order the Rumble for me, and that was my gift. And this was back in the days where you had to go to the cable company and get the little black box to plug up to the back of your TV, and so we'd go and pick it up and plug it up, and I would illegally record the event on a VCR cassette tape so I could rewatch it back whenever I wanted to. And so it's always just been a sentimental favorite of mine, the Royal Rumble. I'd say it's neck and neck up there, with WrestleMania as far as my favorite pay-per-view of the year.
That's a nice little story, man, especially the fact that you must still have some of those VCRs.
Oh, absolutely. I've still got
we've still got a load.
Yeah, I've still got the tapes. I could go back. I said I can vividly remember from '93 on watching them live and recording them, and I still do it to this day. Obviously, with the network, it's a little bit different, but on Sunday I'll still have my microwave pizza and some snacks and drinks on hand, and it'll still be my birthday treat to myself this Sunday. So nothing's really changed.
Oh, that's just a really cute image, man.
Well, let's get into the card itself. We'll start with, and we'll be covering the matches that have been officially announced. There's some rumors of some matches that may be added to the card as the week goes along. Of course, we've got SmackDown coming up on Friday, so there's always the possibility that we could see something added to the card there. But we'll just be covering the matches that have been officially announced over on WWE.com. And let's start with a match that I would anticipate probably seeing on the kickoff show, but it'll be Sheamus going up against Shorty G, Chad Gable. Obviously, Sheamus has made his return to SmackDown and has targeted Gable as maybe his first victim or first person to make an example out of. Like I said, I imagine this will probably be seen on the kickoff show and probably be seeing one or both of these men in the Rumble match itself later on in the night. I think Sheamus is the obvious pick here. Any disagreement there from you?
None whatsoever. Sheamus is just back. Chad Gable, he can't really afford too many losses, but he should still be able to put on a pretty good match. And I think Sheamus is one of those, he's got such championship pedigree, and it'll be better for him to get a win and then take that forward. He needs to be established as a heel in order to elevate faces. I don't see this storyline going anywhere. I think it's just started. We'll probably see a couple of rematches. But yeah, I'm confident Sheamus will be picking up the win.
Next will be a United States Championship match that was actually just announced off the heels of Monday Night Raw this past Monday. Andrade will be defending the title against Humberto Carillo, who we saw return on Monday in a pretty cool way in the Rey Mysterio mask and kind of jumping out of the crowd and then revealing himself as the man behind the mask. And so he will get a United States Championship match with Andrade. I think this has the makings of a really good feud. I think this is something that could definitely be extended. I think it would be awesome to maybe even see a triple threat with these two along with Rey Mysterio maybe at WrestleMania to kind of tie everything up and really bring this thing to its conclusion, if assuming that the ladder match on Monday was not the definitive conclusion to the Andrade race story. But so these two will be locking up. I think it'll be a great match. I do see Andrade getting the win here, or at least in some way retaining the title. I don't think we'll see a title change here. I think this will be something we'll see more of moving forward. How do you see this one shaking out?
I would say very similarly to the last one with Sheamus and Chad Gable. I agree this one is just starting. It's very last minute, but we had to have what was going on with Rey Mysterio. It looks like Rey will potentially be in the Rumble, but won't really feature too heavily. I think this may be telling for the future, because Rey has spoken about wanting to retire only after he's had a tag match with Dominic. Opinion is very high with Dominic right now. A lot of people are very happy with what he's showing them as regards his wrestling skill. So I think he will be debuting sooner rather than later. So Rey Mysterio needed to leave current storylines behind, get into the storyline with Dominic if he is going to start a farewell tour soon. It seems likely, not definitive at this point, seems likely though. So I think this match will be the beginning of something. I think Andrade will retain. I think it'll probably be a very good match, to be fair, and will be what they use sort of in place of the cruiserweight match to get people to buy. But I don't think Carillo has much of a chance, unfortunately.
You know, you've reported on several occasions that this, may be kind of the farewell tour for Rey Mysterio here leading up to WrestleMania. And me and you haven't talked since Monday night, since before Raw aired. How about that ladder match? But if this is the swan song that we're seeing for Rey Mysterio, that ladder match he had with Andrade on Raw, I mean, what a way to start your way out. I mean, he's still got it. I mean, regardless of when he decides to call it quits, he can still put on a heck of a match when he wants to.
Absolutely. Rey Mysterio really works hard to put people over. He's got that old school mentality, much like The Undertaker has, where he wants to make sure everyone in a match with him comes out for the better. He's a very hard worker, and he's said on numerous occasions he wants to make sure he leaves the place better than how he finds it. That's just how he operates. He's got that classic mentality where he wants to elevate everyone around him. There's a number of possibilities he could have going forwards. I think we potentially may see a few more ladder matches, to be honest with you, because that was certainly a good one. It was very exciting. Both men, in a short space of time, did fantastic things. I've said a few times, if you can't have a great match in 15 minutes, you can't have a great match. And that was a great match.
Well, let's move on to our next match, which will pit Roman Reigns against King Corbin in a Falls Count Anywhere match. Now, obviously, these two have been having a big-time feud over on SmackDown that's lasted a couple months here. We've seen Dolph Ziggler and Robert Roode introduced to the feud now along with the Usos. And so this one looks to be coming to perhaps a bit of a head and maybe a conclusion here in a Falls Count Anywhere match. Now we're going to see both of these guys in the Royal Rumble later on in the night. And I know we're going to talk more about our picks for the winners of the women's and the men's Rumble match a little bit later. But I think this match will be a little bit of an indicator of maybe of what we'll see in there, or for me would probably influence who I would pick for the Rumble, because I would think going in that Roman Reigns is probably the betting favorite to win the men's Rumble match. But now that he's in this singles match with Corbin, it makes me want to pick Corbin in this match, because I think there's no way, surely after the debacle that was the 2015 Rumble where they had Roman Reigns shoved down our throats and where he was booed out of the building, surely they're not going to have Roman Reigns win this match and then come out an hour later and also win the men's Royal Rumble, right? And I know that I'm talking to the guy, the creator of the Roman Reigns-o-meter, but surely you got to be in agreement with me that 2 Roman Reigns wins in the same night may be a little bit much, right?
I want to give an example here. I'm a huge Becky Lynch fan. Last year she lost, tapped out in the first match, and then went on to win the Royal Rumble 2 hours later. I think we'll get a very similar scenario here. Yes, I think Roman Reigns will lose. I think the Falls Count Anywhere really plays into Baron Corbin's hands, because obviously he has allies. Even though Roman has allies as well, Baron Corbin can certainly bring a few more people in, and it depends what the next steps are intended to be. They could grow that King's Court of Baron Corbin very easily and add a few more people very easily. So I do see Baron Corbin winning, which is very telling, because every match he's had with Roman so far in this feud, he has won. In Manchester, one-on-one, he won. At TLC, he won. Baron Corbin is really getting the rub of the green here, which tells me a very big win is coming Roman Reigns' way.
We'll talk a little bit more about that here in a couple minutes, because I want to get your opinion on that if, in fact, Roman Reigns does win the Rumble. But I'm with you. I'm going to go on record here and say that I think King Corbin actually picks up the win in this singles match, and then we'll see what happens with the Rumble later on in the night. Let's talk about the women's side of things. Let's go first to the SmackDown Women's Championship. You've got the champion Bayley defending her title against Lacey Evans. You know, Lacey's been someone that's gotten a really solid push over on SmackDown here lately. She's been feuding with both Bayley and Sasha Banks. You know, they've turned Evans kind of full face now at this point. You know, they've even brought, you know, her daughter kind of, you know, into this angle where we've seen on social media, like Bayley and Sasha Banks making fun of, mocking her young daughter, you know, on SmackDown and on social media. So they've really, you know, kind of added in the personal elements to this match and to this feud. I think Bayley comes out the winner here. I think she retains. I think the fact that Lacey Evans defeated Bayley to get this title match kind of gives it away that Bayley will probably get that win back at the Rumble and will retain the title. So she's my pick here. How do you see this one going?
Pretty much exactly as described there. Lacey Evans, for all the push that she's had, this does feel like a bit of a throwaway feud. Just a bit of a time killer. Which is a shame, and I think it's been used in a very clever way because they've turned Lacey Evans' face, which this was always the plan. You bring her in, you get some heat behind her however you can. At the time, they needed a heel, so they got to heel. She was feuding with Becky Lynch for the longest time. They needed a heel to feud against her. But you can't keep Lacey Evans down. Her entire plot line essentially is, I'm American. People are always going to chant for the American in America. Her storyline is that Team America, World Police America, yeah, that sort of environment. And it is. You look at the Marine history, it's a good storyline. It's effective. It's a good character trait. It's not quite enough, personally, for me, but they brought in the parenting and the fact that she wants to be a good role model for her daughter. And you've got that comparison. Bayley saying she's a role model to Lacey Evans being a role model. You've got to wonder how much of that was intentional. Because I think Bayley has adapted what she is saying and what she is doing on Twitter to the opponent she's with. She's been really smart, Bayley, pretty much since she moved to SmackDown in how she presents herself on Twitter. She's been wise. People have been getting heads up backstage and she's really listened to it and she's really been on point. So I think Bayley does win this. I think Sasha Banks may be involved as a way to help that along. And I think mostly this will be the end of the feud, or at least the end of the possibility for Lacey Evans. There are other people. I think Carmella needs to come back into the fight at some point, for example. So whatever the plan is for WrestleMania, I do believe the plan is Bayley versus Sasha Banks. They need to start pulling the trigger and elevating a few more people, because at the moment that championship scene is a bit stagnant, even though the rest of the women on SmackDown are actually being very well featured.
What's your opinion of this Lacey Evans face turn? You know, if like you mentioned, that this whole feud is kind of just a place setter, you know, just to get Bayley kind of through these winter months and until we start getting onto the road of WrestleMania. Do you think that turning a character like Lacey Evans' face in such a short amount of time was a little bit of a waste? You know, would it have been better to put someone like a Carmella or maybe even a Dana Brooke and kind of put them in that spot to, you know, just to kind of see what they've got, see what they would do in that spot, you know, at the Rumble, you know, and then, you know, kind of see what they could do with them around WrestleMania time? Because this, you know, Lacey Evans' this character switch seems such a deviation from what she was as a heel, and I thought she did a great job as a heel with that Southern Belle character. And I agree with you that she has aspects of her real life, like the armed forces background and the fact that she is a mother and things like that, that play into her face character. But it seemed like such an abrupt switch and such a 180 from the heel character that she was, that I'm not sure. You know, I want to get your opinion on what was the turn somewhat wasted? Would have been better to give someone who was already established, like a Carmella or someone, this spot and then just kind of hold off on the Lacey Evans turn? Or do you think that this turn will ultimately be something that is positive for Lacey going forward?
I would say that the deviation per se was the heel turn rather than the face turn. There were two things sort of at play here. She was called up because they wanted her out of NXT and onto the main roster. They wanted her. They didn't care face or heel. They wanted her. At the same time, independently, they needed a heel. They'd lost Ruby Riott. They'd lost Nia Jax. So they did a lot. They knew about the Nia Jax injury at least a little bit earlier. They needed some fresh blood. They needed some fresh faces. She came up. And really, the whole coming down to the ring and walking back wasn't necessarily a heel move. It was an interesting one. She wasn't necessarily heel from the off, but that's how she was received, so they rolled with it. They lined her up against Becky. It worked. However, and I've personally said this pretty much for the entirety of last year, Lacey Evans was always going to be a huge baby face just because of that background that she has. She's not going to be booed for long. And even with everything they did to try and make her despised very effectively in some regards, the second they decided to show even the slightest bit of babyface, the crowds got behind her. The crowd have already started chanting Lacey. We're hearing it. She is already massively popular. You're seeing what she's doing. Again on Twitter, they've had that push. They're saying to people, we need you to develop your characters on Twitter. We need to see you connecting with people in that way. Lacey Evans gets it. She has some quite unique offense, even though when she was first called up, it was a little bit rusty, I will say that. But it's much more in flow now. She's got good opponents ready and lined up against her. And I do think this face turn, now that the anomaly of the heel turn is out of the way, I think this is the Lacey Evans they wanted, and this is the Lacey Evans that we've got.
Well, let's move over to the Raw sightings now with a Raw Women's Championship. Becky Lynch defending her championship against Asuka. Obviously, it's a match I think a lot of people are looking forward to. A rematch, really, that was a year in the making, as we saw these two go head-to-head at the last Royal Rumble, and then now here we are back again, going at it again for the Raw Women's Championship. I think this will be a great match. I think Becky Lynch is the obvious call here, just because I don't think there's any way that Becky Lynch doesn't walk into WrestleMania as the Raw Women's Champion. So I think that, again, this has been a good feud. It makes sense. It's a quality opponent for Becky. I'm glad that she's not just, I feel like in disposition to the SmackDown side of things, I don't feel like that this was just a place setter or just a time waster. I think this has been a legit, well-developed feud between these two, and now people are actually looking forward to these two going at it. But I do think Becky Lynch is the pick, but I'm looking forward to see what they do in the ring and also what they do with Asuka going forward, because I think that she has built up a little bit of momentum here from this storyline with Becky and Kairi Sane as well. So I'm looking forward to see what they do with the Women's Tag Team Championship going forward after this event as well. So Becky Lynch is my pick here. What say you, Tom?
I would absolutely agree. I think it's very telling the amount of offense that Asuka's managed to get, in that Becky Lynch has never even looked close to being Asuka's equal at no point during the entirety of this feud. And the way it's been presented, that management didn't want her to have this match in case she lost. And Asuka's been one step ahead at every point. The only time really is when Asuka came down and got a punch in the throat and Becky walked off. This is something that has been a year in the making. They've harnessed a really good storyline. It was largely Becky Lynch's idea. She wanted to do this. Champions get a lot of sway in who they work with. Asuka's someone she really wanted to work with. So she's got this storyline. It's a good one. It's really connecting with people. That's a great thing. And it allows Asuka, she's got a good opponent that is willing to take a few risks, is willing to do things a bit differently. We've seen the disarm her off the turnbuckle, which the last time we saw that I think was at WrestleMania against Ronda Rousey. So these are two women that bring out the best in each other, and it should be a great match. But I just cannot see Asuka picking up the win. I think this, for all the good match it should be, I think it's fairly routine what the storyline coming out of it will be. There is one person on that roster Becky Lynch has never beat. Once she puts this to bed, she needs someone new to go up against.
And, I'll tell you, credit to Asuka because, and I know that the Women's Tag Team Championship is not necessarily presented maybe it as in high regard as maybe the men's counterpart, maybe hasn't been used in storylines as much. But when you look at the landscape, what other half of a tag team or a tag team champion could you see walking into a main event of a pay-per-view and being able to walk into a main event storyline? I don't see, Ivar of the Viking Raiders being able to walk into a match with, Brock Lesnar and main in a pay-per-view. But here's Asuka, she's one half technically of the women's tag team champions, but is a very viable threat to Becky Lynch for the top women's title on the brand.
You picked a bad week to actually say this particular part, given that there are currently 2 former world champions who are the tag champions
right now. Yeah,
that being Seth Rollins and Kofi Kingston. I get what you're saying. Largely, I do agree with you. I think most tag teams, when they're set and settled, they would never be approaching that level. They wouldn't be able to walk straight into it. And it is a very good thing for Asuka that they've given someone in that position, someone of that potential, that dominance, that experience, and they've given her the belt. But it's very difficult to say because recently you've had a lot of tag champions who have been Seth Rollins. And I don't mean like they've been Seth Rollins level. I mean, Seth Rollins has been 2-time tag champion this year. No, 3-time, because it was Dean Ambrose, beginning of the year.
Right, yeah.
3-time tag champion, each time with different people. So it's a bit of a crazy one. They keep putting the title on him, and he is someone like that. So unfortunately, you've just picked a bit of a bad week for that question.
That's true. Yeah, I should have thought that through a little bit. I forgot about this past Monday. But this past Monday, notwithstanding, I guess in a normal, type of situation. But you are right.
I do agree. In element, I do agree. But I will say, even though I don't see it happening, I would love to see Ivar take on Brock Lesnar.
Well, let's move over to the Universal Championship match. The Fiend Bray Wyatt defends against Daniel Bryan in a strap match. This one should be great. The angle, the storyline, everything leading up to it has been awesome as far as I'm concerned. We saw the return, I guess you call it, of Kane on past week's SmackDown to kind of help Bryan set up the Fiend. Gave us a little bit of a impromptu Team Hell No reunion, and he comes out to help Bryan set up the Fiend for an attack. The strap match stipulation, adds a little bit of something different, something fresh to it. We haven't seen a strap match in a long time, and I'm also interested to see how they play this. I know over the years, kind of the rules have been shifted and changed, and they haven't really specified here like what the rules will exactly be. Is it going to be a regular match, just they're attached to each other with a strap? Is it going to be the 4 corners stipulation where they have to drag their opponent around and touch the 4 corners? So I'll be interested to see how they play the match stipulation itself. I think it's going to be a great match. Again, I don't see the Fiend dropping the title here, but I'm really interested to see what they do in this match. Does the storyline wrap up here? Is this just another chapter as we move forward? I'm really interested in this. What do you see? Do you see the Fiend in any way that Bray Wyatt drops the title here before we go into WrestleMania?
No, unfortunately, I do not. And in many ways, fortunately, I do not. Everything I'm hearing is that Bray Wyatt is planned to have quite a long title reign. Now, he's had it since October, so it's been fairly long if he goes to WrestleMania, but it will be cutting short at the Royal Rumble. And if he loses now, what on earth are they going to do with him in the next couple of months? The second that the Fiend loses, all the momentum is gone. You can at least save it until WrestleMania. This storyline has gone on for a little while now. It's been going on essentially since October in Manchester, which was October? No, it was November. So it's been good and exciting, Daniel Bryan involved in this way. But I do think it's just a way to keep one of the top faces sort of out of contention for certain points. For example, Daniel Bryan in the Royal Rumble, very popular. People would be upset if he lost. Daniel Bryan losing to The Fiend, perfectly feasible. Everyone loves The Fiend more. And that's what you've got to think with Daniel Bryan. He's too popular to be allowed in certain positions. Now, I think they will have a great match, but I think it will be almost exactly the same as their previous match at, is it Survivor Series?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then it was Miz at TLC, wasn't it? So I think it'll be exactly the same as that match. But when you've got a strap attached to you, have you seen The Fiend? Have you seen The Fiend? I think it's more likely what's going to happen is that for the finish of the match, the ground will open up and The Fiend will drag Daniel Bryan straight down to hell.
Man, that's a little bit of a downer. I'm not even sure where to go with that. If that happened, I mean, it'd be cool to see, but I mean, man. And then would they have the Rumbles just with a big hole in the middle of the ring? And maybe that's another way you can be eliminated. If you get thrown over the top rope or you get thrown to hell, you're eliminated.
Well, that would be fun, but thankfully they've always fixed the hole like they did on SmackDown this week. and to be fair, he always seems to have the hole in the exact same place as well. Gotta say.
It's nothing but if not consistent, right?
It's almost like it's pre-cut. Like, I don't know if this is just a theory, but maybe wrestling is predetermined.
That's got to be just a lack of preparation. I mean, if you're the Fiend's opponent and you're watching any type of, film, doing any type of scouting, I mean, you would know by now. Just avoid that part of the ring. If you don't see the Fiend around, don't go to that part of the ring.
To be fair, that is what Daniel Bryan did. That's how he got one over on him, with Kane distracting him. He knew what was going to happen. He knew the Fiend would appear out of the ring, and he knew he could attack from behind. So he's learning. Don't think he's learned enough.
Let's forward think just a little bit here for just a second. Assuming that the Fiend is victorious here at the Rumble, what do they do with Daniel Bryan? If this is the end of the feud and they've got plans, maybe bigger and better plans for Wyatt going into WrestleMania, Daniel Bryan has gone through kind of this character change because of his interaction with the Fiend. He's brought back the Yes Movement. He's cut the hair. What might be in store for him for the next couple months?
In November, just before they started the feud with the Fiend, which is a hard phrase to say, as I've just realised, the feud with the Fiend, they did briefly tease the idea that Sami Zayn was going to try and recruit Daniel Bryan, and this would potentially lead to a Daniel Bryan versus Shinsuke Nakamura feud. Give me that, please.
Let's move on to the Royal Rumble matches themselves. We'll start with the women's side. Interestingly enough, at least as of now, from what I've seen, only 4 names have been confirmed for this match. Obviously, there's going to be 30 women in there, so you got to think that either A, there's going to be lots of surprises, or maybe B, the WWE just don't know who they want in the match as of now. I would think that probably also means a lot of NXT involvement in this one to fill out the field. I'm going to let you go first on this one. Who do you see coming out on top in this women's Royal Rumble match?
Well, firstly, to touch on your point about only 4 people being announced, that is intentional at this point to try and differentiate between the men's and women's. The men's field is very overloaded. It will feature very few surprises. And in many ways, they're sort of tongue-in-cheek saying to you, Edge and CM Punk aren't going to be in the Royal Rumble, just so you know. Because what is it, 25 people announced already and still none from NXT?
Yeah, I think 26, at last count. I think there were like 4 spots open. Yeah.
Yeah, and we already know Triple H said to us he's forwarding a list of people he wants to see and have big moments, Matt Riddle being one of them that he used as an example, so we know that's happening. With the women's, you could see literally anyone. They've left a lot of things up in the air, and that I feel is a good thing. There were some question marks about who could make it. There is obviously, I think we'll see a lot of people who are currently at Worlds Collide. Kaylee Ray's someone that I think will be in this Rumble. Kairi Sane was quite last minute as when she was cleared. They were going to do the fitness test before the Royal Rumble. She was cleared last week, so they didn't want to announce her and sort of jump the gun. So that has been sorted as of last week, and she will probably be in the Royal Rumble. But at the same time, there should be enough women once you factor in quite a lot of NXT, so they might call in a few surprises. I'd love to see Beth Phoenix as an example, and they want to leave some ambivalence about people like Ronda Rousey. Because even if she's not going to be there, and I don't believe she will, they want you to think she's going to be there, because then you'll tune in. My pick for winner, I've been saying for a few weeks now, and I stand by it, would be Shayna Baszler. She just lost her NXT Women's Championship. Even though she was eliminated in a Battle Royal by a newcomer, I don't believe there is really a storyline being planned there. I think she's going to step straight up because Becky Lynch does need new opponents. There is also an outside chance I think Sasha Banks could do it because ultimately it'd be very easy for someone like Sasha Banks to win. That begins her storyline with Bayley, and then the night after on Raw, Shayna Baszler attacks Becky Lynch. That starts the whole storyline just as easily as a Royal Rumble win. But I think they want to put over Shayna Baszler, they want to put over NXT, and they want to start this feud hot.
All right, well here's our first pick that's gonna deviate from each other. We haven't agreed on, so this is good. And I'm glad that you mentioned Sasha Banks because she was actually going to be my pick initially, but then I started to think about it, and just like you said, because of the fact that there's only 4 women already that are announced, so you got to expect there's probably going to be a lot of surprises, a lot of wondering what's going to happen as opposed to the men's Royal Rumble. So my pick for this, and I agree with you that Baszler is probably the betting favorite, but I also agree with you that I think her feud with Becky would be easily jump-started. Just have her come out on Raw, choke Becky out or something like that. There you go. There's your feud. So I don't think that they need to waste a Royal Rumble win on Shayna Baszler to get her and Becky Lynch at WrestleMania. So my pick for the Rumble match is going to be a returning Nia Jax. She's going to be my pick for this. I think that she could come in, and I think you could play it either way. Does she come in as a heel, and maybe make you think that, her and Becky Lynch have some unfinished business as well. So maybe you put that seed in people's mind that maybe she's going to come after Becky and the Raw title, or maybe you bring her in as kind of that monster face and she goes over to SmackDown and she bumps around Bayley and Sasha Banks for a couple weeks and leads into a feud there. So I'm going Nia Jax as my pick for the Women's Rumble match.
I'm going to cut in here. That's a good shout. I completely agree with what you said there. I know she's at least nearing full fitness, and when it comes to a Rumble, you can be protected, and obviously it'll be a few months before the WrestleMania match would happen. I think that is a great shout. Could lead into a great feud with Becky Lynch. I laugh wholeheartedly at the idea that she would ever come in as a face. She was the most hated woman, probably in wrestling history, for what she did to Becky Lynch. And she built on it and built on it and built on it, and she's such a good heel. She really found her rhythm in the last few weeks and months before she unfortunately was injured. So I can see that. It's definitely possible. However, I'm not sure she's fully fit. So we will have to see as to whether or not she does return. It's quite taxing a Royal Rumble if you're going to be in there for quite a long time. Don't know if she will, but we will have to see. It is a good shout. Definitely someone with potential.
Yeah, I agree. She's better as a heel, but in order for my scenario to work, she has to come in as the monster babyface and beat up Bayley and
oh, no, she'd be coming for Becky. She would be coming for Becky. Nobody would want anything else.
Quit bothering me with logic, Tom. This is my pick. I'm booking the Royal Rumble. Nia Jax is going to come over and go Braun Strowman on Bayley and Sasha Banks over on SmackDown.
Maybe she's going to win the men's Rumble. She was in it last year.
There you go. Yeah, there you go. Well, let's talk about the men's Rumble. Let's go over to that match now. You've got, as you mentioned, a little bit in relation to the women's Rumble where we only have 4 names mentioned. Like I said, I believe that at current count there's 26 names that are mentioned as being confirmed for the match. None of those are NXT names, so as you said, probably you got to expect that we'll see a couple of NXT guys coming up, which does take a little bit of the excitement off for me, just because I think that because of that probably means that we're not going to see some of the surprise legends returns, which is I always get a kick out of that, even if they're just in there for a couple minutes, seeing guys from the past, like the year that Diesel came back, or the Godfather and Mr. Perfect.
Bubba Ray.
Yeah, that was great. Jericho, obviously, when he came in at 1, so that takes a
still could happen.
Still could happen. Still could, and like I said, and I'm hoping for it. But, just like you said, Triple H has even said he wants some NXT guys in there. He's got some moments in mind that he would like to see. So that makes me think that, at least a couple of those spots. And so it'd only be 4. So you got to think at least maybe 2 of those will be NXT guys. So maybe we get some surprises, still in there. Obviously, the internet would melt if two of them are Edge and CM Punk, which is not going to happen, but I'm sure that's what everybody's holding out hope for. But I don't think that's going to happen. But hey, anything could happen. But as far as our picks, this was tough for me. Again, I don't like, as I've said, sometimes I don't like to go with the betting favorite. Sometimes I give the WWE the benefit of the doubt that sometimes when things look like they're too easy to call, that they'll pull something different and go a different direction just for the sake of it being unpredictable. And I feel like in this match, that's probably not what we're going to get. I think Roman Reigns is the betting favorite, and he's going to be my pick to win it here. It's not a terrible pick if that's the way they decide to go. I'm just really hoping that we don't see a rerun of 2015 where if he does win, and because of the fact that he's already in a singles match earlier in the night, and because it seems pretty predictable that he is the guy that's going to win, and if he does win, I think people will probably assume that it means that he's going to beat The Fiend at WrestleMania, which I'm not sure a lot of people will want to see because of how over The Fiend is right now. So if he does win, am I wrong to think that this could be bad and he could get booed out of the building again if he wins this Rumble?
You are not wrong to think that. It does, a lot of it depend on how the match is booked. However, I'm going to go into quite a bit of detail here because I want to speculate a little bit. I want to say what I think is going to happen in many different levels. Firstly, it's a shame we don't get to see Nia Jax take on Brock Lesnar. That would just be great. Or maybe she's going to be number 2, win the match, and then take on The Fiend. Those are matches that would actually probably be quite fun. But anyway, I would like to predict, and I'll ask you this straight afterwards before I move on to my next point. If there are 4 spots and there are 4 NXT stars, I would like to predict who they are. So I'm going to say my 4, and to try and give you a bit of time to think up your 4. Okay?
Okay.
So I'm going to start with Matt Riddle. I think he's someone that Triple H has mentioned. That's someone who's potentially quite exciting. He could walk into a feud even for a couple of minutes with Brock Lesnar. We know Brock, the plan is to get him as hated as possible. Throw in a fan favourite like Riddle in a big moment like that. Get him thrown out. The crowd will hate it. It'll be great. So number 1 in that regard of the 4 NXT stars will be Matt Riddle. Number 2 for me would be Keith Lee. They have huge momentum behind him. He did a lot at Survivor Series. He's another one who could walk in at number 2, terrify Brock Lesnar. That could be a great little match. My number 3, Finn Balor. Missed the crossover. He's teasing it on Twitter. He's saying, see you Sunday to some WWE stars. And I think it'd just be very exciting. It'd be nice to see him interact with people again. And he's one of those who has a lot of history with a lot of different people. Stick him in there with Brock Lesnar. Stick him in there with Roman Reigns. Stick him in there with Seth Rollins. Everything you need. My number 4 would be Tommaso Ciampa. He is sort of the big name in NXT right now, but he is sort of not too heavily involved at the top level right now because of how Worlds Collide is going and everything like that. So we will see what the next steps are for him, but I think this could be a bit of a launch pad for him. Those are my 4. Riddle, Keith Lee, Finn Balor, Tommaso Ciampa. Who are your 4?
Well, I tell you, as you asked me that question, I was writing down who I thought, and 3 of them were right on par with each other. Matt Riddle, Tommaso Ciampa, Keith Lee were 3 of the guys that I wrote in. For my 4th one, I had kind of 2 guys I think it could be. I think they've got to throw a heel in there as one of the 4 guys, and so I said that it could either be Adam Cole, or I think it might be kind of cool if Walter was one of the 4. That
would be cool.
How cool would it be to see an interaction between him and Brock Lesnar? Maybe Lesnar's alone in the ring after he's thrown a couple guys out, and then Walter comes out, and we see that confrontation for a little bit. Same type of thing with Keith Lee. I think it'd be cool to have Keith Lee be one of the guys that maybe Brock has a little bit of a one-on-one interaction with at some point. So that would be some. I'm taking a little bit of a. I guess I'm taking 5 names. I think it'll be 4 of those 5 because I do think one of them will probably be a heel. And I know you said Finn Balor. Although to me, I would, because of his new character, I don't know if I'd want to see Finn Balor in the Rumble, because I think I'd want to see him kind of establish this heel persona a little bit more on NXT. Because I think if he comes out at the Rumble, the casual fan is going to expect Finn Balor, Demon King, Extraordinary Man type of deal. I'm not sure how many people really been paying attention to what he's been doing on NXT as far as the casual fan goes. So I'm not sure how I would feel about him being in the Rumble. But I think I agree with Riddle, Tommaso, Keith Lee, and then like I said, I'm going to take a little bit of a sneaky way out and say either Adam Cole or Walter.
I think Walter's a good shout because we know he's in town because of Worlds Collide.
Right.
So that could be an interesting thing, and I think that's a very good idea. He could also come out and get a bit of revenge on Drew McIntyre or Braun Strowman. There are possibilities there. I want to go into a bit of detail as to what I expect from Brock Lesnar in this match. Coming in at number 1, instead of coming in and just announcing for the Rumble, means to me that he's going to sort of segregate the match. So I don't think we'll see a classic Iron Man in this match. We'll see maybe the first 7 or 10 entrants will be all based around Brock Lesnar. So you'll have people come in, particularly fan favourites, and get thrown out in short order. He'll dominate the match and then probably come up against someone like Keith Lee or Braun Strowman, and that'll really slow him down. And they'll stay in the match afterwards. The idea is that Brock becomes more and more hated. That's why we saw R-Truth. That's why we saw Ricochet. You're supposed to really detest Brock, because the more you hate Brock, the more you're going to like whoever eliminates him. And they're doing this because they're not confident that they will get a pop for whoever eliminates him. Because easily the favourite person to do that is Cain Velasquez. Ugh. That's certainly a popular opinion, that exact noise that you just made there. But that does seem to be where they're going. And when it comes to potential opponents for Brock Lesnar, there aren't many more that they have shown consistent faith in. And I know they haven't shown consistent faith in Cain Velasquez. In fact, when it comes to faith in Cain Velasquez, unfortunately, it was very shaken by his initial appearance in the company. But from what I can tell, they've decided to give him another shot. They're happy with what they're seeing as per rehearsals. And they think an uninjured Cain Velasquez will put on a very exciting, very different and very unique match with Brock Lesnar. So that is what they want to do. If not at WrestleMania, then at some point soon. They want to make that happen. So I think that will eliminate Brock Lesnar from contention, which leaves us with a 23, maybe just 20 person Royal Rumble after that once he is gone and it slots more into place. There's a couple of possibilities. I obviously am a big proponent for Rusev winning the Royal Rumble. I really hope he will. But I am very confident that Roman Reigns is going to win. One of my main reasons for this, since I started watching wrestling again in 2015, and even further back, thinking back to 2014, Batista was the favourite to win the Royal Rumble. Batista won the Royal Rumble. The next year, Roman Reigns was the favourite to win the Royal Rumble. I'm talking betting favourite now. Roman Reigns won the Royal Rumble. In 2016, who was it in 2016? Triple H, who was the betting favourite to win the Royal Rumble. The next year, even it only happened on the day, but the betting average shifted on the day of the Royal Rumble to Randy Orton, who won the Royal Rumble. The next year, the favourite, second was Roman Reigns, only just because first was Shinsuke Nakamura, who won the Royal Rumble. You know who was the favourite for the women's? Asuka, who won the Royal Rumble.
I'm sensing a pattern here.
There is a pattern here. I'll leave it there because I think we all know where I am and where I have been with this. The favourites are there for a reason. There is a lot of betting that happens, and a lot of the informed betting comes from shareholders. Information does bleed out quietly. Shareholders in the company do learn a little bit about the direction of the company before it starts, so that they know what they've invested in, so that the WWE can say to them, here's what we're doing, here's why the fans are going to get behind it. So it does bleed out, and I think that definitely is the case in what happened with the Randy Orton betting average. There is a reason that Roman Reigns and Shayna Baszler are the betting favourites, even though a couple of weeks ago when I reported it, CM Punk was still the betting favourite. But I reported at the time Shayna Baszler, Roman Reigns. I stand by that now.
If Reigns does win, do they run the risk, or not? Let me rephrase that, because I think obviously there's a risk involved. So let me be more definitive. If he wins, will they tear down all of the progress that they have made with him in the past couple months, maybe even a year, because of the fact of how over the Fiend is. And like I said, I think most fans would assume that, well, if he faces the Fiend at WrestleMania, Roman Reigns is going to be the guy to finally beat the Fiend. And so, again, he starts getting boos and the fans turn on him even before we get on the road to WrestleMania. So if he wins this match, are they just going to take 3 steps back from where they've come with him up to this point?
I think you've kind of answered your own question there, because you made a key point of saying they will assume that Roman Reigns wins at WrestleMania. What if he doesn't? I heard a few months ago that the plan was for Bray Wyatt to have a long title reign and potentially to continue to hold that championship after WrestleMania. I believe the last shot at WrestleMania will be of Bray Wyatt holding the Universal title and standing over Roman Reigns' prone body. I think that is the main event. That's how you send a crowd home happy. And I think back to SummerSlam 2017, I believe it was, when we had AJ Styles defeating John Cena clean in the middle of the ring. And afterwards, once all the smoke had cleared, the fans were chanting, "Thank you, Cena." I think this is that moment for Roman Reigns.
Well, man, a lot of intrigue going into this, and like I said, this is why the Royal Rumble is one of my favorite shows of the year. So we will definitely be looking forward to it, and we know that you all will as well. Hope that you are keeping up with us over on the YouTube channel, Sportskeeda's YouTube channel, that is. Make sure you give them a subscription and hit the subscribe button and know whenever new episodes of Dropkick Discussions gets uploaded. You can follow Tom on Twitter at Colohue. You can follow me on Twitter at Korey Gunz. You can also check out Tom's YouTube channel over on YouTube and give him a like and give him a subscription over there as well. He's always dropping new videos that have even more insider news and views and rumors that he talks about, even more so than what we get to talk about here on the show. So check him out over there. And you can always go to sportskeeda.com to get all of your latest updates and wrestling news and happenings. We hope everybody enjoys the Royal Rumble, and be sure to check us next week as we will do our Rumble reaction show and be talking about all the goings-on at the event, and then start looking forward as we get on the road to WrestleMania. We appreciate you guys listening to Dropkick Discussions presented by Sportskeeda, and we will see you guys next time.